Hello everyone, this is Afternoon 2 Humans, and today I'm going to be showing you how to create an awesome VCR glitch effect in Adobe Photoshop. Just like this, I'm just going to be using this image of a mushroom for an example, but you can do this on any photo you like. I'd recommend it being fairly high quality though. And yeah, this is the end product when applied to the mushroom, and yeah, let's just get straight into it. So we can start off by opening the image we're going to be using. And I think it's pretty essential to the VCR effect that the image we're using is in a 4:3 aspect ratio like a classic television set. So we can convert this to 4:3 by taking our canvas size and taking the width and making sure that the height is 3/4 the width, and then multiplying this by 0.75 to result in 2880, which I can paste into my height value. And then if I press OK, you can see that we now have this effect. I'm going to unlock the background layer by double clicking it and hitting OK, and I'm going to edit this photo so that it fills the whole canvas size, just using Ctrl T to transform it. So there we are, center it, and it looks pretty much good to go. Maybe even a little bigger to place more centralized focus on the mushroom. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, and now to start the actual glitch effect process, I'm going to start by using the rectangular marquee tool to take areas of this in sort of random bar shapes and just select them off the mushroom, of the image in general, so horizontal bars from top to bottom like this. Okay, when we've made our selection, we're going to Ctrl C that, and now we have a new layer of all of the bars that we've just selected. And now we can use our arrow keys to offset that slightly, which starts us off with an already a nice glitch effect. I think this is a good amount of offset to make the picture sort of look a little bit messed up, but sort of still pretty. Guys, quick interlude. I wanted to let you guys know I've set up a Fiverr where I'm going to be creating and selling retro graphics for anyone who wants to buy them. On screen, I've just got a few of the ones I've created in the past, sort of showing up to let you all know the sort of style I go for and what skill level I'm at. The link to my Fiverr will be in the description, and it's just on screen right now. Okay, so the next effect we're going to be applying to this is, after we've merged the layers, the next effect we're going to be applying to this is an RGB color shift. So to start that, I'm going to hit Ctrl J to duplicate this layer. I'm going to go into blending options, and I'm going to turn off the green channel for this, and I'm going to turn off the red and the blue channel for that. And then I'm going to select the higher layer and go Filter, Distort, Shear. So in this shear effect, we're looking to barely offset the graphic, and I'm going to do that by barely moving the nodes from the center line. This will stop it from looking sort of too ridiculous and too improbable, and keep the sort of the color shift a little bit more subtle on the mushroom. Now if I hit OK, you have a pretty sort of small looking glitch effect. This isn't too massive. And so next we're going to be adding some adjustment layers to make this image sort of a lot more classic VCR style, and sort of the color settings that sort of seem to be used on older TVs. We can do that by turning up the contrast a little bit through this adjustment layer. In the levels panel, I'm looking to make the darks just a little bit darker. We can do that by, I'm going to do that by moving the grey node just to the right a little bit to bring out the highlights in the image. Okay, that's looking a little bit more sort of coloured like a VCR tape. So next up, we're going to be adding some grain to the image. We're going to do that by creating a new layer, and we want to make sure that our foreground and background colours are set to white and black respectively. I'm going to take my paintbrush and make sure the size is pretty high up here, 100% opacity and 100% hardness. I'm going to paint over the whole image in white. Then I'm going to go filter, noise, add noise, and you're going to want to set this amount to the max, set it to Gaussian noise, and make it monochromatic too. And then from here, I'm going to select a sort of a mid-sized chunk of this noise, hit Ctrl X, delete that old noise layer, and paste that back in. Then I'm going to want to move that to the corner, zoom out a little bit, hit Ctrl T to transform this, make it nice and big, and fit perfectly over the whole image. I'm going to go into my blending modes. I'm going to select overlay from these. I'm going to turn down the opacity so it's slightly less in your face and distorts the image less. I think perhaps around 20% opacity looks nice. So it just adds a little bit of grain to the image, but not a huge amount. Next up, I'm going to be adding in a sort of little bit of an effect to, I wouldn't know how to describe it, but you sort of commonly see it on VCR glitches when you sort of just look them up on Google, and it's sort of bars of color and sort of darker bars being distorted along the image wavily. I think I described that pretty poorly, but we're going to be creating a hue saturation layer and then turning down the lightness and the saturation quite a bit on this. Right, just like that. And then we're going to set our paintbrush to black, and then selecting the mask of this layer, I'm going to paint all of this out. So now the layer is completely gone. And then we're going to select bars just along the left hand side, I think would be wise, and holding shift every time you select one to make a new selection until we have all these little bars along here. Make some really thin, and then we're going to take our paintbrush, we're going to swap the colours so we have white on our foreground, paint in these bars in white while having the mask layer selected. Just create these darker strips along the side of the image, and then we're going to go filter, distort, and for the type we're going to select square. We'll turn up the number of generators fairly high, and we can just play around with the wavelength until I get that sort of small, slightly subtle effect. So I've played around with this filter a little bit, and I'm just going to hit OK. And now we have this sort of messy effect along here with all these little distorted curved particles overlaying the image, but fairly subtly. You can hit Ctrl J on the layer to make it sort of stand out even more if you like that. I prefer it slightly more subtle, just like that. I'd also like that effect on the right hand side of the screen, so I'm going to duplicate this layer and then go edit transform and then flip that horizontally, and now I've got it on the other side of the image as well. Yeah, that looks pretty good to me. Next up, I'm going to be adding a halftone pattern over this image, and to do that I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to paint all over it in white just using that paintbrush, and I'm going to go filter, go into my filter gallery, and then under the sketch filters I'm going to select halftone pattern. I'm going to set the pattern type to line. I'm going to set my contrast to 0, and because of how big my image is, I'm going to want my size fairly high. If I hit OK, it should result in this. Now I'm going to set my blending mode to darken. I'm going to turn my opacity down quite a lot, just to make sure it doesn't disturb the image too much, because having it on full completely sort of blanks out all the other effects we've put on, in my view. And yeah, get this fairly subtle halftone pattern over this. I'm going to create some text over here, set my font to VCR mono, my color is white, and yeah, type up a classic VCR text that goes over. So I think usually see play as if it's been sort of like a screenshot taken from a classic VCR tape, and then also typically have the playtime on the video up here, and set that to 128, or just some value around that. Doesn't really matter too much. I'm going to make that slightly smaller, and then I'm going to duplicate this layer again, go into my text tool and edit this text again. Typically we'd have the sort of the recording time also. I'm just going to go as if it's been taken at 2 AM and duplicate that layer, change this. Often it will have the date as well, so I'm just going to do a classic sort of number style date. How about it happened in August? That sounds pretty good. Summer days. And yeah, well, it's a VCR tape, so let's have it happen in 98. I mean, we get to say when it happened, really. I'm going to select both those layers and make them a bit smaller, just tuck them out the way a little bit more. Yeah, I'm happy with the positioning of that text, so I'm going to select all these layers and then group them together using Ctrl G after selecting them. I'm going to hit blending options, turn off the green channel, duplicate that, blending options, turn the green channel back on, turn off the red, the blue, and then just use my arrow keys while on the move tool to offset that just a little bit. So in my initial image, purple gets offset on the left and green on the right. So I'm going to make sure my text is doing the exact same thing. Pretty good to me. So I'm pretty much happy with that text. So now the glitch effect part is pretty much done, but I'm going to add some final touches to the image to make it look even nicer in my view. So I'm going to create a hue saturation filter and then turn down the lightness and the saturation just a little bit over all these layers. And I'm going to go into the mask, turn down the size of my paintbrush just a little bit, set my hardness to 0, and then we can create a highlight in the middle over the mushroom because that's the area I want to be focusing on. As well as that, it's a 90s image, it's going to be fairly poor quality, and I want to create a blur, but not over the whole thing, to place even more focus on the mushroom, because just a blur over everything I think would just make the image look even worse, but we can create a focus to it as well. So I'm going to select the lowest layer, hold down shift, select the highest layer to select them all, hit Ctrl J to duplicate everything. I'm going to merge all these layers, and now most images, this was taken in the 90s, so it's going to be pretty blurry. I'm going to go filter, and I'm going to go into field blur, just put quite a bit of blur over the whole thing. The default for this actually looks pretty perfect for what I'm going to do. See, maybe it'll look nicer, slightly toned down. Yeah, that looks pretty good to me. I'll hit OK on this and wait for it to develop, and yeah, pretty blurry now. I'm just going to add a layer mask to this. Our paintbrush should be just as it was before, maybe even just a tad bit smaller, and yeah. Okay, so that's my VCR glitch effect done. Lots of focus on the central point of the image, also some really nice blur. Thanks everyone for watching this video, and yeah, check out my Fiverr in the description, and I hope this tutorial helped you out.